Assalamualaikum and very good morning to Sir Muhammad Fidaus and all my fellow friends. I hope you are in good condition while listening to our group presentation. The topic that we will cover in this week, which is chapter number 3, is developing a consistent game plan for moral reasoning. Before I start any further, I would like to introduce my group members, which are me, myself, Fatin Aiman binti Ibrahim. Second is Siti Nur Rashida binti Kamil, and lastly Nur Fatiha binti Kaharuddin. These are our presentation outline where we will cover from introduction, steps in thinking through a moral problem, obstacle and fallacies in reasoning, and next is case study, and lastly is the conclusion. I hope you can stay focused and jot down the important point for better understanding. So we will proceed to the first slide, which is moral reasoning. What is moral reasoning? Basically, moral reasoning is the process of decision making, whether the decision is right or wrong based on the person. It is contain the rules and the standard for what people should do, like what are you decide to do today is your decision making or your moral reasoning. Decision in life is important to lead you to make the right choice or the right decision. Without decision in our life, it gives you stress like you cannot decide what you are going to do in daily activities and can lead you to boredom. Other than that, in moral reasoning, steps are used in thinking through a moral problem in sports, like what we have learned in chapter 2 last week. There are four moral principles or known as moral value, which are justice, honesty, responsibility, and also beneficence. The next slide is about steps in thinking through a moral reasoning. Basically, there are 5 steps that are used in thinking through a moral problem. You need to pay attention to this part because this is one of the crucial part in this chapter. The first step is, are any moral principles violated? Second is, are any moral rules violated? Third step is this case an exception? And the fourth step is, are the rules justified? And the last step is, how can the rules be changed? This step is the crucial one because when you want to do something, you need to think what you are going to do. Basically, this step is used based on our experience or our belief about something. This step then will help you to think faster, and this is one of the factors that lead you to a moral problem that happen in daily life. I will give you the further explanation and example in the next slide to make sure you understand this step. Make sure you jot down the important notes and to make sure you understand or clear for this step. So the first step is, are any moral principles violated? It is related to values and ethics associated with sport principles. A principle is a basic truth, law, and the policy. In this first step, you are the one that set the principles in life. When one agree to compete, one agree to apply this moral principle at all times. Is if one violated any of these principles, then one must decide whether this action is an exception to the rule or the action is morally unacceptable. I will give you a short example to make you clear. We choose one of the 4 moral principles which is responsibility. For example, your best friend is having a hard time and you need to support and need support from you, and so you give them support and help her to overcome the hard time. So it is your decision to help or not based on the moral values, and you have the responsibility to help other people who are in need. So the second step is, are any moral rules violated? Before you decide to do something, you need to know, is there any rules violated or not? It is Numerous moral day-to-day rules follow directly from each principle, and these rules govern all behavior in sports setting. These specific rules should guide you as you participate, and if if they do not, they need to address why there are exceptions. For example, in sport that doesn't have referee to control the game, like frisbee game or ultimate frisbee, the athlete need to tell the truth or respect each other and also need to keep the promises to play fairly. Same goes to other sports. If the athlete fails to follow the rules given, such as do an aggressive body contact to the opponent, it means that you have violated the moral value that given. The consequences from this action, you either get penalty or suspended for your action. The third step is this case an exception? Rules may have exception, but the exception must be justified. Why people or why the athlete neglect the rule. The burden of proof whether this is an exception means that you must show that there is a good or overriding reason for allowing this exception. You may have the exception if a moral rule is in conflict with a moral principle. In some cases that happen, athletes need to consume a drug in certain sports, and there must be a reason why they consume the drug for a sport. For example, I give you an athlete that has asthma and requires the athlete a specific drug to compete at a minimum level. The drug, however, is a banned drug that listed in of the governance body, but the asthmatic athlete cannot compete if they do not use the inhaler for their health problem. This this one of the exception because you may need to change the rule for medical condition. Other than asthmatic athlete, a transgender athlete or a transgender person is consume the testosterone drug that in to make sure that they can compete in their category as long as the athlete did not exceed the percentage that given or percentage that have been set for the drugs for a specific drug. For example, that used in sport boxing and also the weightlifting. For boxing, the athlete used the drug to reduce their weight to compete in specific category. Step number 4 is are the rules justified? When you apply the rules, you must ask whether the rules is a good rules or not. Sometimes rules are immoral, such as a rule that harms or is unjust. If the rule violates one of your moral principles, you may truthfully say that this is morally wrong, even though there appears to be good reason for the rules. For some rules may not fair to all athletes. Athletes need to fully say that was morally wrong if the rules was violated one of the moral principles such as play fairness and also respect each other. For example, I will give you some sports does not accept Muslim women who wearing a hijab or a long sleeve to perform in sport. In 2017, 16 years old Amaya Zafar was disqualified from Sugar Belt Boxing National Championship when officials found her hijab to be in violation of their safety codes. So you can see this is obviously one of the immoral rules that exist because since there is no exact data or the exact situation happen that hijab girl or hijab woman can give injuries to opponents, but still they concluded hijab as a dangerous equipment to use or compete in sport. As you can see in boxing, they use safety helmet to cover their head, but and did not harm the opponent exactly, right? But still, the judges or the officials take serious action to Amaya because she wears hijab under the safety helmet. The last step is how can the rule be changed? If the day-to-day rules are your personal rules, you can readily make a change. If you cannot morally function within the rules and change cannot be affected, you may be morally justified in breaking or violating the rule as long as it is done consistently. It is referred to someone who have the power of or the influence to change the rules such as politicians and also the authorities. The change that they make must be beneficial for many parties so that they need to consider the four moral principles or the moral values which are justice, honesty, responsibility and also beneficial in their decision making. For example, in football match, VAR is used to get a clear scene whether it is goal or not. It is to give satisfaction to all parties that watch the match. Rules are accepted to change if the rule is harmful or detrimental effect to other people or to the athlete itself. So that's all from me and I will proceed to the next presenter.
Thank you Fatih Aiman for a clear presentation just now. I am Siti Nur Rashida binti Kamil and I will continue this presentation with obstacles and fallacies in reasoning. So before we go further, let's take a look at the definition of obstacles and fallacy first. So the first one is obstacle. Obstacle is something that blocks your way so that movement or progress is prevented or made more difficult. This means that obstacle is some barrier or resistance that block your way to move forward or to prevent your way to move forward and influence you to make a wrong decision or difficult to make decision. So the second one is fallacies. Fallacies is a mistaken belief, especially one based on unsound argument and belief of others' opinion or perception than the truth. It means that fallacies refers to mistaken belief of someone that he or she will always think negative of others. Other than that, he or she will always deny the theory that given by the others. So all these obstacles and fallacies will influence someone's decision making. The decision making may be right, but because of these obstacles and fallacies, it will influence they to make a wrong decision in daily life. So there are 13 obstacles and fallacies in reasoning, and we will look one by one after this. So the first obstacles and fallacies in reasoning is skepticism. Skepticism is an attitude of doubt or a disposition to incredulity either in general or toward a particular object. It is also any determination of morality. It is simply an expression of feelings or emotions. So skepticism always to be known as narrow-minded as well. So people who have this kind of attitude will tend to think negative of something or someone. So if something positive happen in their daily life, he or she will try to deny and think negatively. For example, Husnina Faizal is announced as the best frisbee player, but one of the team members who have this kind of attitude, which is skeptic attitude, will tend to think negatively about her. She or he may think that Husnina Faizal got the title because of she close with the coach, not because of the performance. The second one is cultural and relative ethics. People in different cultures do have different standards, practices, and values. They change by a degree as to different times and places. So everyone have their own belief that can influence someone in making decision. We can relate this with Malaysians. We know that Malaysians have several races and religions such as Malay, Chinese, and Indian. So we also know that each of these races have their own belief and culture. Such as Indian, we know that they cannot eat meat when some of their family members die. Okay, other than that, surrounding also can be one of the factors that can influence someone in making decision. For example, in FSR, we can see that we have budaya salam. So this budaya salam is one of the way of students and lecturers to practice. When we meet other people, we will greet them with salam, such as Assalamualaikum. So this culture will, this surrounding, belief, values in someone's life will also influence someone's in decision making, whether right or wrong. The third one is dogmatism. Dogmatism has all the answer. Reasoning is unnecessary because the answer is known. So basically, dogma comes from a Latin word, means that which on thinks it's true. So the dogmatic has a close-minded and refuse to acknowledge any alternative. It's kind a little bit same with skepticism, but this dogmatic is more to close-minded. They will not gonna accept others' opinion or alternative because she or he will always think that they are right. Sometimes they are very sure they are right, even though they are not right. Next is false abstraction of theory and practice. Ethical theory is, after all, only a theory and therefore not factual, realistic, or practical. So basically, people who have this kind of attitude will tend to deny any story without a fact or a practice for them to do. They will not simply trust anyone when they have no evidence. So for them, theory must be supported with an evidence. When someone told him or her about something, he or she will like, oh, the real world is not like that. Do not trust it because there is not realistic for you to trust. For example, a ghost. Hazira did not trust about a ghost. So when her friend told her friend can saw a ghost, Hazira will simply say that, oh, actually there is no ghost. If you can saw a ghost, then why can I saw? So it is not realistic. Same goes with COVID-19 vaccine issue. When people who did not trust in vaccine, they will tend to say that COVID-19 vaccine did not help in someone to lower the risk of getting affected by the COVID-19 virus because they have no evidence for them to trust. For them, it's just a theory. So people who have this kind of obstacle and fallacies in their daily life will have difficulties in making a good or a right decision in their life. I will continue with the fifth obstacles and fallacies in reasoning. Are you guys still with me? Thank you. So the fifth is the fallacy of authority. The fallacy of authority is claiming that something true simply because someone in authority. So as we all know, authority is all about the power. So someone will tend to trust those who have the power, such as MPP in our campus, politicians. So when they are making promise with us, for us, we tend to believe them. For example, here, Ismail Sabri said that public can appeal for compound reduction when they are not wearing a mask at public. We, as a powerless person, will tend to trust them. So he, as a people who have the authority to influence others to believe in him, will make others easily trust them. The sixth obstacles and fallacies in reasoning is ad hominem argument. So ad hominem argument is an opinion or belief is wrong solely because the person saying so is known to be bad or disreputable. So the person who has this kind of attitude, more to like when they want to argue something, this person will try to make fun of the others. They will try to defeat the opponent by making the opponent feel ashamed, feel offended, or feel useless. Here I attach you a video for an example.
Bagi ruang kepada Presiden Salam.
Terima kasih.
Saya dah tunggu lama dah Yang Berhormat.
Duduk.
Sik, mohon jaga sikit ya.
Budak-budak duduk dulu. Saya, Datuk Speaker, nak
Cucu yang berhormat tengah lihat tau.
duduklah.
Jangan sampai nanti
Baru belajar banyak lagi. Banyak lagi perlu belajar.
Next is misplaced and improperly placed authority. So this refers to someone who tend to trust expert or people who have professional degree or important position, even the supposed expert has a little experience on the subject. Okay, so let me make it clear. For example, here I attach a photo of Ronaldo and Niloufar. First, we take a look on Ronaldo. He is a famous and a football superstar. So when he advertised and endorsed the KFC product, normally people will tend to believe in him. Maybe people will think that, oh, maybe if I eat the KFC, I will become an expert or a great footballer because he also eat the KFC. As you can see, the poster also shown that Ronaldo hold the KFC bucket inside the stadium. So people will tend to believe he as an expert in football. Besides Ronaldo, we can see Niloufar. The photo shows that Niloufar hold a skincare product. So when Niloufar advertised the product, normally people or netizens will easily tend to believe in her, that people may think that, oh, maybe if I wear the skincare product, I will become pretty like her. Next is the appeal to force. So the appeal to force is also known as argument to the cudgel. When force is used in place of a reason in an attempt to justify a conclusion, it means that it is more towards the force that have been used to influence someone's decision. For example, that if you don't follow what I said, then you will be punished. Here I attach you some example. 2 football players in the Malaysian Super League have been suspended for not following the rules that have been stated, while the 2 other players have given a warning. So it really shows that if you don't follow what the rule have been stated, then you have to be punished. So that's all for me. Let's move to the last presenter, which is Fatiha.
Thank you, Rasida. My name is Nur Fatiha binti Kaharudin. Now I will proceed with the remaining of the fallacies. The appeal to pity and ridicule. As you can see on the slide, ad misericordiam is a Latin phrase which means to pity, and this fallacy's definition is the attempt to distract from the truth of the conclusion by the use of pity. This fallacy is arise when an appeal to evidence is replaced with an appeal to pity or mercy. So this fallacy is much more use of emotions such as sympathy, benevolence, or mercy. So let's look at the example of the situation. You should find me not guilty. If I go to jail, my children will starve. Therefore, you should find me not guilty. As you can see in the situation, this person used an appeal to pity, which is, if I go to jail, my children will starve. In making an argument, you are supposed to provide an evidence for your claim. However, this person used an appeal to pity, which is because he does not have evidence for his claim. Therefore, he used the emotions of pity to win the sympathy of the listener. Next fallacy is begging the questions. The fallacies of begging the question is happen when an argument's premises assume the truth of the conclusion instead of supporting it. This fallacy is also called a secular argument, which is an attempt to make an argument by beginning with an assumption that you are trying to prove is already true. So to beg the questions here is just to evade the questions. For example, in the picture, the food made me nauseous. No, the food was nauseous. It made you nauseated. So he just evade the questions and asserting the information in different terms. Now let's look at the video for example of these fallacies.
Man, those are some funky looking birds.
Oh, oh, you look like a little tiny dinosaur. There's one vicious baby bird.
Dad, they aren't birds. Sure they are. They came from eggs in a bird's nest. Therefore, they're birds. Ixo, fatso.
1, they don't have beaks. 2, they don't have feathers. And 3, they're lizards.
You're a
As you can see in the video, Bart has assumed that all animals that born from eggs in a bird nest is a bird. Bart's statement here is not self-evidence and need a proof. Therefore, Lisa has applied more sound reasoning by demonstrating that the lizard does not have characteristic of birds, which is feathers. So, by implying that all animals that born from eggs in a bird nest is birds, Bart has backed the questions. Next is equivocation. The definition of equivocation is alternating between the different meaning of words in the argument's premises. The fallacies of equivocation is happen when a phrase have been used in ambiguous way in order to hide the truth or avoid from the point of view. Now let's watch the video, for example, for this fallacy.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, I'm throwing my head into the ring. I'm announcing my candidacy for the presidency of Earth.
Scoop Chang, Beijing Bugle. Sir, the Constitution clearly states that nobody can be elected president more than twice.
That's right, nobody. But as you can plainly see, I've got a shiny new body.
In the video, the words that have been interpreted in two different ways is nobody, which is Richard has used the words nobody to nobody instead of using the nobody that refers to a person. Richard has interpreted the words of nobody to a body of a person. Therefore, by interpreting the words of nobody to give two meaning, which is no person and no body, Richard has used the equivocation. The second last fallacy is psychological obstacles. The psychological that interferes the ability to moving forwards with confidence and determinations. The use of psychological obstacles is simply poor reasoning. This is because the persons that use these fallacies do not have been confident with their self in making decision, and they only relying on other person to make a decision. This person also have been afraid to make a wrong decision and fear to make the same mistakes again. The last fallacy is final comment on courage, which is opposite with the fallacies of psychological obstacles. If psychological obstacle is about being afraid of making decisions or to being confident with their own self, but in these fallacies is about they have been brave to voice out their point of view and they have the spirit and courage to speak out their voice. For example, Greta. As we know, Greta is a climate and environmental activist from Sweden. She has been brave, challenging the world's leaders to take immediate actions against the climate change. So Greta action has been fall under these fallacies, which is a final comment on courage. The first case study is about BAM, Badminton Association Malaysia, that has won their athlete to show a good performance in the upcoming tournament if they do not want to be suspended from the association. So this case study is related with the fallacies of the appeal to force, which is the force that has been used by BAM is the harsh warning, which is to drop their athlete from the association if they fail to show the good credibility with good performance in the upcoming tournament. Therefore, this is a threat of force to accept their conclusions. The second case study is related with the third steps used in thinking through a moral problem, which is this case an exception? This article is about a group of lawmakers that prepare a legislation that will allow overseas athletes to bring medical stimulants into the country for Tokyo Olympic and Paralympic Games. This is because, before this, the Japanese law has prohibited people from bringing the stimulants into the country. So, in these cases, the athletes have strong reasons to bring the stimulant drugs into the country for medical purpose for Tokyo Olympic. And these cases, they can get exception from being prohibited by the country and get permitted to into the country and perform the tournament. As conclusions, obstacles and fallacies can influence the process of decision making in life. Therefore, it is important to have a good moral reasoning in order to determine what is right and what is wrong. And the 5 steps in thinking also can help to minimize any threats in order to make an effective decision making. That's all from us. Thank you for watching this video, and if there are any questions that you guys do not understand, you may ask us in the group.